We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world. We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Star Wars Bounty Hunters Issue 1 from 2020 from Marvel Comics. This is written by Ethan Sachs, art by Paolo Villanelli. Arif Prianto was the colorist. The letter was VC's Travis Lanham. Cover art by Lee Bermejo. I actually like the cover. It's pretty cool. It got me to buy it. Assistant editor was Tom Groneman. Mark Panicia, editor. Okay, so this is the first part of the series, and we start off with a mission where a bunch of bounty hunters had teamed up. We had Bosk, Boba Fett, and a couple of others, one of which is Valance, and he actually originally appeared in the Marvel Comics Star Wars series, issue 16 from the 1977 run. So he's a bit of a Marvel throwback in a lot of ways, and you don't really see this character very much, so it was kind of cool to see him come back. And he's got like this cyborg skeleton underneath his skin. Well, the job went sideways, and Valance gets injured mostly due to Boba Fett, so there's some rivalry there. And it turns out this woman, Lash, blew the mission by doing something really bizarre, but we don't really know why. It's not explained, and probably should have been explained. That would tell us why these people seem to hate her. And then we've got this other lady who is going to find out what happened to her brother, and of course she's your mandatory lesbian. Her partner is a pink-haired mohawk lady with, the shaved sides of the heads. What I call the hero haircut, because it's way too common these days. That's just stereotypical. Then Dr. Aphra shows up for some stupid reason I don't care about. I think that character's ridiculous. The first half of this book was pretty solid. About halfway through, about the staples, it started to get pretty dumb. The lesbian thing was predictably pointless. Dr. Aphra showing up, she's a strong, independent woman that never needed no man. Of all characters in history, I think. And she's just good at everything. She's a total Mary Sue. So her being in here, she's probably going to be our protagonist. Overall, I thought the issue was completely tepid. The first half started out pretty good, and then it got really boring really fast. So it was pretty middling. It's mediocre. Is it worth $4? I don't think so. It's good dollar bin material, but beyond that, I'm not real comfortable paying $4 for it. The art was okay. It didn't really bother me. I think for the style that is, it's fine. Not my favorite, not something I'd seek out. Looks more indie art than it does for a mainstream publisher, but I didn't have a problem with it. The story itself really suffered because it's not that good. It's just kind of boring. It didn't really inspire me to check it out. You know the twist is going to be something stupid, like, oh, they were going to go execute some kittens or something. And it just seems kind of trite and boring. So I'm not particularly excited to pick up the next issue. I'll probably pass, but if I find it in a dollar bin, maybe I'll check it out then. So I would say this is probably a pass, unless you can find it really, really cheap. But that's just my take. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Star Wars Bounty Hunters Issue 2 from Marvel Comics, written by Ethan Sachs, art by Paolo Villanelli, Arif Prianto colorist, VC's Travis Lanham letterer, cover art by Lee Bermejo. Actually, I thought the cover was pretty decent. It's got a lot of flair to it, very bright, explosions, I like that. I actually picked up this issue based on the cover. Tom Groneman was the assistant editor, Mark Panicia was the editor. We pick up a little bit after we left off last issue with everybody hunting Lash. Now Valance is trying to get some information, but a bunch of people are dead and they're looking for clues, and he has a flashback to a situation at a bar which goes on way too long. This is like a 6-page flashback that really should have been about 2. And it's dumb. It's about some Imperial stormtroopers looking for this kid that stole some rations off a speeder bike, and Valance and these other bounty hunters suddenly develop morals and decide to save the kid and slaughter a bunch bunch of stormtroopers. It was kind of stupid because it's a little unrealistic. Maybe one or two of the bounty hunters did this, but I don't see all these guys getting involved. So Valance figures out who killed all these people in this bar in the modern era and then proceeds on to a new location. Bosk is doing his thing, and this other lady is teaming up with some guy whose kid got killed by Lash a long time ago. And that's more or less the issue. Valance and Bosk run into each other and we get a cliffhanger ending, but it was overall a pretty boring issue. I picked this up kind of on a whim, hoping the miniseries would get better. Probably shouldn't have, because it really didn't. This is a really dragged out issue. It's clearly a lot of padding for the trade. The pacing really hurt it the most because it's just a lot of blabbing and talking that should have been more action oriented or cut to the chase. A lot of these scenes could have been summed up in 1 page or 2 pages just for brevity's sake, and then gotten to more action. This probably could have been a 2-issue miniseries instead of, it's probably 6 issues at this point, but at most a 4-issue miniseries with a lot more action. But they're just dragging it out. They're padding for the trade, and it's really sad because if this had been a 2-issue miniseries, it probably would have been a lot better with a lot more action, and they could have sped the story up a little bit. But it's so decompressed that it's dragged out way too long. So I'm not impressed with this at all. It's really sad too because I could tell there's a core story here that actually has a lot of potential, but it's just being milked for a trade paperback. But that's kind of Marvel's thing last several years, is to drag out stories so that they can try and sell trade paperbacks to unsuspecting idiots. So I'm gonna say this was not very good. I already picked up issue 3, but I'm really disappointed with this series, so I'm not gonna recommend this. I thought it was boring and it took too long to get anywhere. Some of the art's pretty good, but the storyline is just really badly paced. Ethan Sacks can do better than this, and I'm really disappointed because I know it's not entirely his fault that Marvel has an obsession with writing for the trades and just milking your money. It's disappointing. It's a waste of a really good property with a lot of really good characters that have a lot of potential, but they're wasting it on these long, boring stories. Not a very good use of money, and I would say pass on it, but that's just my take. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Star Wars Bounty Hunters issue 3. This is a 2020 series from Marvel Comics, written by Ethan Sacks, art by Paulo Villanelle, Arif Prianto colorist, VC's Travis Lanham was the letterer, cover art by Lee Bermejo. I really like that cover. That's actually action oriented and does relate to what's going on in the book, and it's really well done. So good job on that. Somebody actually did a Marvel style cover for the first time in like a decade. So good job there. Assistant editor was Tom Groneman. Mark Panacea was the editor. The bounty hunters are all searching for Lash, and Valance has a clue as to where she's at. For some reason, a clue was left at this sort of planet graveyard thing, whatever. It was pretty interesting. And Bosk has tracked Valance there, and somebody else has too, and that guy is going for Valance's droid, and Valance ends up in a really long, drawn-out fight with Bosk. And it's actually a really good sequence. That was really, really impressive. It takes a while, and there is some interspersed background stuff that I didn't really care about, but the action scenes between Bosk and Valance was fantastic. That was kind of what I was hoping for the previous issues. But this issue really kind of brought it together, moved the plot along pretty significantly with this other thing going on with the Mourner's Whale, which is like a space gang of cultists or something, and somebody else has tracked down Lash, and we learned that there's another person involved in this, and we're left with a little bit of a cliffhanger ending. This was a solid issue. Easily the best of the 3 issues so far. Whereas the first 2 were kind of boring, this one was actually action-packed and fun, like a real comic book. The plot actually moves along, you learn a little bit, and there is some really good action, and a fair amount of violence, which I enjoyed quite a bit. I thought the art was only okay, but Bosk looked pretty cool. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of this style, it's alright. I didn't hate it, but it's just not something I prefer. But the artist definitely has good perspective shots, not a lot of flat angles or boring views. The fight scene was really good. This artist needs to do more of that. And the cover is fantastic. The cover artist should definitely be doing more work for the comic industry. So hopefully we get to see more good covers like this, and hopefully the book continues to be this good, because the first two issues were really weak compared to this one. So good action, good plot development, and further into the storyline. All around a solid issue. So I'm going to recommend this one. Solid recommendation. I didn't feel cheated for my money because stuff actually happened. And Ethan Sachs needs to do more of this work and less of the boring talking, blathering stuff. This was a solid issue. Good recommendation on this front if you're looking for an action book. But that's just my take. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you want to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description and on the About page. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Star Wars Bounty Hunters, issue 4, written by Ethan Sachs, art by Paulo Valance, Arif Prianto is the colorist, VC's Travis Lanham letterer, cover art by Lee Baramjo. Cover's a cool looking pinup, and the little reflection in his hand is a nice touch, and on the skull. Not the greatest, but I do like it. It's really well done. It just doesn't really tell you what's happening in the issue, but it's a cool image. Tom Groneman was the assistant editor. Mark Panacea was the editor, dedicated to Alan Harris. Alright, so we get a little bit of background on what's going on with the Unbroken clan fighting the Mourner's Whale. It's just sort of a one-page thing, and we jump back to where we left off with the mandatory Marvel lesbian deciding to team up with Valance, but he has to wear a restraining bolt, and then he volunteers to tell her where Lash is at, and then just flat out tells her, and she zaps him anyway, because that's empowering, or something. Not a very good trust building around here. Then we see what Lash is up to and how one of the bounty hunters who was a step ahead of Lash, whose name I can't pronounce, found her, and there is a fight, and we learn that Lash may be in some real trouble. Meanwhile, a new bounty hunter is joining the fray, and Valance and mandatory lesbian end up in a fight on the planet where Lash was supposed to be, but she's not there right now, and they get attacked by a giant monster, but of course he's just a misunderstood lovable cub. It's dumb. And then we find out what really happened all those years ago, and we are left with a cliffhanger ending that actually was an interesting twist, because I didn't think they were going to do what they did. The majority of the issue, except for the last 2 pages, are massively predictable. I already figured out what happened with this whole situation because it reads like a bad movie. It's not bad, it's just mediocre. And that's what really kind of turned me off about this issue, is that everything in here felt like a really low budget sci-fi channel movie. The whole thing with the giant monster really just being a misunderstood cub, and the angry lesbian is like the worst character in this entire series. Valance is a cool character, Bosk is cool, the mystery bounty hunter is cool, everything else is just kind of hackneyed. So it's a real mixed bag. You could straight up guess who the other bounty hunter is. It's a dead giveaway throughout the whole story. But overall, it's not badly written, it's just mediocre and largely forgettable. Most of this issue looked like stuffing because they're padding for the trade paperback. I have a hard time recommending this, especially at cover price, so I'm not going to. Too much of it was just fluff, and that's the problem that Marvel has all the time. They can't compress a story. It's all got to be dragged out into 5 or 6 issues for trade paperback purposes. This is a 4-part story stretched out to a 6-part story. That's what it looks like. It's a mediocre story that, if it had been compressed, could have been really good and much more fast-paced and action-packed. Instead, they're dragging it out for the trade, like I said, and because of that, I can't really recommend it at full price. If you find it in the discount bin for real cheap, then yeah, pick it up. There's some action in here, but this issue isn't going to make much sense without the other issues, so I would say get those out of a discount bin. It's not worth cover price right now. So it's not bad. The art's okay. I didn't hate it. I don't love it, but just like the story itself, it's incredibly mediocre. There's some really cool scenes in here, but there's a lot of boring stuff too that really didn't need to be in there, or the dialogue is just a little wonky and predictable and written like a Hallmark dark movie. So if you can find it in the discount bin, grab it then, but don't pay anywhere near cover price for it. That'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel in other ways, links to my Patreon, Streamlabs, and Teespring store are in the description. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.
We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Star Wars Bounty Hunters issue 5. This is from Marvel Comics, written by Ethan Sacks, art by Paolo Vanelli. Arif Prianto was the colorist, VC's Travis Lanham letterer, cover art by Lee Bermejo. That cover is pretty cool, but it's just a pinup. There's no action to it. It needs to have some spice to get you to want to buy it. Otherwise, it's just a cool picture. Assistant editor Tom Groneman, Mark Panacea editor, and this is dedicated to Alan Harris, who passed away in 2020. So we learned some history about Lash and how she was orphaned and sad things, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, Boba Fett has found Lash and Valance. Valance puts up a pretty good fight, and obviously him and Boba Fett do have some kind of checkered history, which we learned a little bit about, but Fett's just kind of a jerk. And we do learn a little bit about what happened on that day years ago from a different perspective, which really probably should have been told to us early on. Then we learn what happened to Valance when he got captured at that botched attempt, and how the Unbroken Clan got mad at their opponents, and what this is really all about. And we learn the sad fate of one of the characters as the bad guys close in and things do not look good. We are left with a slight cliffhanger ending and an interesting scene, so it could be a solid next issue. Problem I had with this was not the art. The art's okay. I'm not a huge fan of the style, but characters looked okay for the style that it's in. Don't like the anime mouth on everyone, and it was a little bit of exaggerated body proportions at times when people were doing action scenes, so it's very heavily anime inspired, I think. So you can see some manga and anime influences there. Overall, the story itself is fine, but the dialogue was very much like a bad TV show. People talking a lot during a scene where there's a time frame constraint. So the ship's gonna blow in 2 minutes, and let's sit around and talk about our feelings for that entire time. No, it's not how things work in real life. So I get the impression that Ethan Sacks has seen a lot of TV shows and dramas, and he was copying that style, especially in the dialogue between Valance and Lash near the end of the issue, and it was a little bit tiresome because I thought it was very hackneyed and melodramatic. But overall, the core plot's pretty good. It seemed that the dialogue problems that I didn't like were really designed to stretch out the issue a little bit and pad it, and I think that's unnecessary. It's just more extraneous stuff that is designed to make the story last longer for the trade paperback, and I hate that. The story should take as long as the story needs to take, and this is very decompressed storytelling. Again, this story arc could have been compressed down to 4 issues, 3 easily, but 4 at the most if you had simply cut several scenes out. So I didn't have too big of a problem with the art style. It's just not something I care for. It's very anime inspired, very manga influenced, but Boba Fett looked really cool. Valance looked okay most of the time, and the story's fine. It's just not worth $4 to me because it's TV dialogue. So if you're thinking about picking this up, I would say get it out of the discount bin. It's really not worth cover price, and the paper quality is still the usual Marvel trash paper. It has improved slightly over the past year or so, but it's still really low grade paper, and it's not going to hold up, and it's very easy to wrinkle. So I would say get out of the discount bin. There's not a lot here that really justifies $4. That'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel in other ways, links are in the description, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.